Hi, this is Shay Bynes, founder and chief fire igniter of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur and the host of the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur podcast. Last week, we kicked off something new, and I think it's pretty exciting in the community called Expansion Talks, or E-Talks for short. Now, as the name suggests, kingdom expansion is the desired outcome of these conversations that we're having with the global KDE community, which includes you. So if you are on our email list, you will receive the link to join in live to these Friday e-talks that take place on Zoom. But you can also listen to them afterward because we'll be sharing the replays right here on the podcast feed, as well as sharing them on our Facebook page. Now, these episodes are going to be listed in the podcast as expansion talks, along with whatever the topic is that was discussed. Now, I believe that you will be blessed by these. And so I encourage you to make sure you're subscribed to our email list by going to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/connect so that you can receive the invitations that go out every time that we're having one of these Friday e-talks. The intent is to do them every single Friday, but you've got to give us some grace as we're getting this thing going. But it will be most Fridays. But if you're on our email list, you will always get the reminder and the invitation. So again, go to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/connect so that you can join Team KDE and your fellow Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur community members live on Zoom for these talks. Now, what you're about to hear now is the recording from the very first e-talk, and it is with Phil Bynes, our CEO, and Latara Venice, our Director of Culture, on the topic, Your Unique Offering. So listen in and enjoy.
Hey, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. I am Latara Venice, and I am the Director of Culture for Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, and we are joined by the awesome and handsome Phil Bynes, our CEO.
Well, thank you for calling me handsome, but there's only a few people that probably really think that. I'm teasing. I'm not trying to bait you guys to give me compliments. I'm just cutting up. That's all.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Yes. Thank you, Ebony, for letting us know that they've been having some issues for a while now with Zoom and Facebook going live. So that's good to know. So next time we'll make sure and use a different platform for this. But we're here to have these conversations that, the Lord kind of placed on your heart, Phil, and tell us about it. And let's get started.
Well, today we want to have a culture conversation, but specifically we're going to be talking about your unique offering and just thinking about that from a kingdom perspective. I woke up one morning out of a dream, and immediately I had some thoughts that came to mind, and I started writing. And out of that writing, a couple of rapid fires were produced, but, there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had. So I figured I would have Latara help me out and we would get at it, And so what I'll do is I'll read, I guess I'll start by reading the thing that I sent to Latara after I got this download from God. And then we'll start to dive into the points and go a little bit deeper. We'll take some questions and we'll go from there. Okay. So what I have here is your unique offering. And then what came to mind was Matthew 6:10. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so this was the writing that I have here. Our king is not only looking to offload a culture to earth, but also products and services. The kingdom exports will influence the culture of the nations we live in. Let's see. And as we produce, products and services, we're contributing to the GDP of the nation that we live in. And so that just stands for gross domestic product. And we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. Heaven has blueprints for things that we must produce on earth. Our king wants his citizens to produce these unique offerings, but the challenge is to get them, talking about the citizens, to first stop copying what has already been seen on earth and partner with heaven for the new and unique. And then the last thing I have here is, if his citizens are unwilling, then our king will begin to outsource these products and services to the world for production. Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much the gist of what he was speaking to me. And then a whole lot of other stuff came out of that. But
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. And I think that's good. And Phil and I were talking beforehand about this, and I've been thinking on it. And the funny thing I think is really important is that we're in this season because a lot of people are talking about this very thing. But I think a lot of people are also missing the boat on this very thing, not really digging deep into what the word says about it, just knowing that something has to be unique and different. And I mean, but isn't that like God though? I always say that's just like God, to just do it different. And I think that the struggle comes in a lot of times for those of us in business because we see the blueprints of those who are successful, moving forward, and they're successful. It's like, well, I should buy their blueprint, or I should purchase their blueprint. Let me go step by step how they did it. And it oftentimes doesn't work in that way, right? And so I love the thought of us moving in this different kind of vein. And I was telling Phil just a couple of weeks ago that I went to go write a landing page, and I love that Joy is in here too. Our one of the most awesome copywriters, and I'm trying to write this copy, and God's like, that's not it. That's not your voice. And I was like, what do you mean? Your voice is vocal, right? And so what does that mean? Is that you're not marketing in that way. You can't do copy in this season. And that's not the blueprint of success for online marketing. But God is telling me to go talk to people, and that's going to fill up my programs, and people will purchase my products. And it's been my norm for the past few years, but I keep trying to go back to the blueprint that other people say works. Write copy, write a whole lot of copy so that people read it and so that people purchase. And, and I'm like, okay, but that's not working for me. And I had to really hear God a couple of weeks ago when he said, your voice is vocal. That's not normal in what we see in the world of business. It's just not normal just to talk, right? So I think that it is a good space for us to be in. And I'm glad that those who are here. And, I think we'll all be challenged by this conversation to show up different with how we do products and services.
Yeah, that so makes sense. Yeah, I mean, okay, so when God, has called me to kind of father this movement, when I begin to think through challenges and constant, the things that I hear very often, and the challenges that people are having, and it becomes apparent to me that, sometimes we have an understanding of the kingdom of God. We have an understanding of all the things we read in the Bible, but it hasn't passed our knowledge filter. That's why when I began to do the writing out this stuff even more deeply, the first thing that God started to speak to me about was knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Because if we remain in the realm of knowledge, we won't be able to walk out the unique offerings that God has for us. We have to move past knowledge to wisdom. And once we get to wisdom, once we begin to get an understanding of the things that God has for us to do, then we begin to gain deeper understanding, and we can help lead other people into what God has for them to partake in. And so that's why, like, when I first endeavored to start to speak about this, I had to tackle knowledge first. Knowledge, we have to move from knowledge to wisdom. We have to move and not just even stay in wisdom. We have to gain the understanding, because once we have the understanding, then we can begin to impart what we understand to other people. And the interesting part about that is, if we go up a level to understanding, we make space for the people that are coming behind us. If we never reach understanding, there's no space for the people that we're imparting into to enter into wisdom, right? Because a lot of times they're never going to come, and they're never going to come to the same level that you are, because either they hold you on a pedestal, or they're not eating on their own at a high enough level for them to have that wisdom that God wants to download to them. The Bible talks about how, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives liberally. But a lot of times, when you're following someone else that God has led you to, a lot of times you don't surpass them, because you look to them as almost like the source.
Yeah.
And that's why in KDE, we're always pointing people back to God, back to the Holy Spirit, because we can't be your source.
Right.
If ever we become your source, we're capping what you can receive from God. But anyone that can tap into the ideal of going straight to God as the source, they can raise up to the point where they become peers and even they excel whatever we're doing, right? And so that's what it's been about. And so yeah,
that's good. That's good. So as you guys are listening, you can comment, you can ask questions, share what's coming to you, because that's the purpose of these e-talks, right? I just love that, e-talks. And I think when we understand that God is the source and everything else is the resource, it kind of really helps us to become more comfortable as well too in these unique ways he tells us to move. Right? Because he's going to tell us in unique ways to do these things, even if and sometimes it may look like something somebody else is doing, and somebody else because it should be other people doing soul care. I do soul care. I shouldn't be the only one doing it. Someone else should be, but the way that someone else may have someone else do it, it might be a little bit different. But if we understand resources, and we get comfortable with, okay, well, I'm supposed to look a little bit different. I'm not supposed to do this the same way as someone else does it. And I'm doing this because I really believe our unique offerings as well, that God utilizes who we are personality-wise, right? And how we bring this thing forth. And that's one of the dangers of trying to pick up making other people the source, is you miss who you are. And sometimes we try to become who they are. And so then it's not unique to who we are as people, right? So, if y'all don't know, now, I'm a little edgy. I can be a little edgy, right? And I'm good with that. But for a long time, I always tried to pick up somebody else's script, somebody else's blueprint, the way somebody else did it. And God kept going, this is not working for you. This is why you're not making no money. I just had to be real with that right there. That's what he told me. This is why you're not making no money. It's not working for you because you're trying to be somebody else. Yes, Audrey, a little edgy. Don't question mark me because you know me. Don't do that. Right? And so we have to understand that God doesn't expect for us to be different than who we are. He's going to utilize that as well. And when we learn that, of course, that kind of really helps us see that he's the source. He created me this way, and he's molding me to do this thing the way that fits who I am for his glory. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. And it's quite funny because, like, there's this thing that people say sometimes that it irritates me a little bit because I think they're coming at it from the wrong heart. I know what they mean, but it irritates me because if you have the wrong heart about it, it will keep you bound and locked into a cage, basically. But when people say stuff like, well, I want all of God and none of me, or more of God and none of me. I mean, I think where they're coming from is a good place, but it's almost like a false humility, because what what we need is understanding of who God truly made us to be. It's not about us not having a signature. God when he created us with a signature. So he doesn't want none of you. He wants all of you, but he wants all of the original you, the one that he created you to be. And too often we begin to downplay that because we feel like nothing good can come out of us. No, if we are the masterpiece, then there's something very special. There's something very unique in us. The challenge is we have to make sure we stop taking other people's blueprints, or stop trying to be reproductions of something else that we've seen that was good, even if it was godly, And so that's the challenge. We have to get to the point where we're comfortable going to the King directly, or going to the Holy Spirit and getting specific things for us. It's okay to take people's frameworks, but blueprints, no, right? But if you take a framework can help you begin to see how you fit, how you can use that same framework to see what your walls look like, and what your roof look like, and what your foundation, well, your foundation is Jesus, but what the tile on your foundation looks like, right? And so, yeah.
So Phil, let me ask you this, because I know you've really been thinking on this a lot, is that, so for people who are like purchasing these blueprints and using so many other people as sources and not resources, what can somebody do to begin to understand their unique offerings, who they are?
Well, I think even if you take someone else's blueprint and you begin to pace the blueprint through certain questions. Okay, Lord, what do you want me to get out of this? I purchased this person's blueprint. I think that it's valuable. I see all the great things that they've got out of it. What about this should I get out of this? Right. And then what can happen is he can begin to give you a framework of what type of things you can expect to take and pay attention to. Right. Instead of just taking it as a whole and be like, oh, I'm going to implement this. I'm going to implement that. I'm going to implement this. Also, you ask yourself questions like, OK, well, who did you create me to be? Very specific questions about you. You need to know about who you are. And the more you know who you are, the more you can set your own framework or know where you should not pass, what boundaries you have. Right. So when I took on this position as CEO of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, the only thing God kept speaking to me about was my identity of being a father. That was it. You're a father. You're a father. You're not just a father to your children. You're a father to people older than you. So everything that I look at when I'm doing Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur comes from the lens of the identity that God has already given me for this position. And so when I look at it through that lens of being a father, okay, what does a father do? I start asking questions like that. Lord, what does a father do? And I'll go into the word and he'll show me some stuff, but also he'll tell me directly, well, fathers protect, fathers impart, they set identity, they set the atmosphere for the household, all these different things he began to tell me about. Right. So when I start to do stuff that doesn't look like that identity of father, then I have to question myself. Am I doing the right thing? Then I go back to the father. Okay. Should I be doing this? Because this don't look like what you revealed to me about what a father is. And then that gives him space to clarify. Well, actually, you are still doing the role of a father because the father does this. Then I see a different perspective or I see a different angle of what fathering looks like. So I would say go to asking God questions about your identity, even good. In the stuff that you're looking at.
That's good. I love that. Ask God questions about your identity, and then for people who struggle with thinking you can't hear God, he talks to you. Right. And trust me, he'll answer the questions. And I love that. Someone said this, and I think this is important too, to kind of talk about a little bit. She said, hold on, this is Jaleesa. She says, so our unique offerings should be frameworks instead of blueprints.
No, our unique offering can be a blueprint. But I'm saying if you start with, especially if you're looking at somebody else's thing, if they give you a framework, you can use someone else's framework to help you when you're creating your own blueprint is what I'm getting at. But God can give you specific blueprints for heaven for your life. Most times, though, he's not going to tell you the whole thing at once because he's interested in the process. Think about it. If God laid out the fullness of the blueprint before you, you're going to take that blueprint and run with it, and you're never going to check back in with him. When his desire is to have communion with you, communicate with you. So a lot of times he doesn't give us the fullness of a blueprint because he wants us coming back. He'll give you a little bit at a time, and then he wants you to come back. He'll send you in a direction, and it's the full direction you're supposed to go until he says, stop. You're not supposed to do that anymore. Now I want you to go over here. And a lot of times people get confused. It's like, well, you had me over here and things were going so good over here. Why are we stopping, Lord? Why are we doing this? Because he only wanted you to go so far in that direction because now you receive what he needs you to receive to be able to be processed in the next place where he wants to take you. Yeah,
I think that's good. That's really good. I know actually, when I teach people, when I talk about like vision activation, I talk about blueprints, but then I talk about frameworks within the blueprint, right? So, and I think that's important. I think that's pretty much what Phil just said is the framework is within the blueprint. And no, God's not, you may like see the whole blueprint, but it might be stuff blocked off that you're not seeing just yet, right? Like he might go, this is your capacity, but you can't see all that yet because you might either run towards it too fast or run from it. even faster. So let me give you this little piece right here. And I think that Joy said something about blueprints. I really liked. Let me go find it here. Blueprints. Hold on one second.
Blueprints don't deliver the same results, but God's guidance, wisdom, and discernment will take you places you never imagined possible.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's really good because it kind of helps you to understand that, what if you begin to try and look at the blueprint and you move a little bit further ahead than what you were supposed to, and God is saying, I didn't tell you to do that yet, right? Like that's something that I used to be really, really like really bad at. He give me a thought, an idea, and he hasn't really opened that room yet or given me a framework for it, and I'm running with it. And then I'm wondering why. Well, what happened? Why didn't I succeed over here, God? Because you gave me this thought, you gave me this idea. And I think that this is an important piece too. That stuff has to be thought out. You have to like really sit with God on this. That's why when you get a vision, it says, Terry, sit. Sit for a while, right? And I remember there was this one chick on Facebook at one time, and she said, anytime God gives me a vision, I run with it right away. But then she always would like bump her head, or fall on her tail. And I was just like, because you didn't sit with this for a while. So I think that's important too. I think it's also important because it helps you to become comfortable with how God is moving you in a thing, because it might not look like, again, my voice is vocal. I can't write copy in this season. I can't do email marketing in this season. That's not normal. But yet I'm making more money than I ever have before in all my online, and I'm talking money because sometimes I think people need to understand that, God is saying, look, I got the blueprint. I got what you need right here. You don't have to go follow that multimillionaire, or that they don't necessarily have it. Just because they're making the money doesn't mean that they have what I need for you to carry forth. And that's why you have to sit on these things. And it is.
It is true. Because when you think about it, like the reason he doesn't like fully give you the blueprint, because it's, once again, going back to the process, it's about the process, right? Like a lot of times we look at things and we just feel like, well, if I only had this, I would be ready. But the truth is, there's stuff that you pick up in the process that's invaluable. Like you have to pick up a level of patience in the process. You have to pick up a level of softness in the process. If you're a hard person, right? Sometimes you got to pick up. There's very distinct skills that you don't see how it applies to where he's ultimately taking you. But those skills are going to be needed to impart into maybe someone else that he's going to send down in your path. Right. So you need to know it. And so that's why, like, he doesn't, and I saw someone ask about what's the difference between a framework and a blueprint. Yeah. So this is how I would describe it. A framework is just kind of like, okay, this is what's entailed of a house. You have walls, you have things that support walls, you have the foundation that holds the whole structure up, you have a roof to keep you dry, and bam, that's what you have. That's the exterior, that's the framework of the house, right? Yes. But a blueprint will tell you all the things. Okay, this is where the door goes, this is where the walls for the kitchen goes. It's super highly detailed, right? And you can't get to the highly detailed part without mastering, what does it look, what are the basics of what I need to keep and have? Because the interior, the detailed stuff can always change. Right? So if you have a framework for, let's say, for example, Latara has Color Your Soul company, but first she got a framework that was more Color Your Soul as a brand, right? And there were some pillars that were put in place and things that she needs to talk about, right? But when God called her to shift into something different, the framework did not change. She just expounded on the building enlarged. She was able to let's take down this wall, stretch out it's like what does the word says? It's something about stretch out the pegs of the tent, the pegs of your tent or something like that. You can make the edifice that you're building bigger, right? But The framework tells you, okay, if you don't have these things in place, whatever I'm building is going to crumble.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's it right there. That's you explained. Just I was going to answer the question. I said, oh well, framework of the pieces. It's like the pieces of. And when you mentioned the Color Your Soul company, at one time it was a brand. It was just a brand, and before it was even a brand, it was like, how can I say? It was like if I were to look at a blueprint, the blueprint was like a shack. Like for real, because I simply put my hat down for the coaching I was doing, trusted God for a whole year. I went live every day telling people that they were emotionally cuckoo. That was like, God, I got to do that. You got to do that. Go live every day. You can go to 2017 on my Facebook page and you will see video after video after video. I didn't have a brand, Phil. I just had a message, but I knew it was about Color Your Soul, right? That's unique in itself. I didn't have a brand. I didn't have a website. I had some colors. I had 9 colors. And that's not even heard of in branding. I had nothing, but God said, do this thing. But what was God doing in that is that piece of the blueprint that he had showed me, he was building it up and expanding it out. And I didn't get it then. I don't even know how I made money in 2017, living in this house that we were renting at the time, that I always tell people that I now own. I don't even know how I did that, other than simply trusting God and knowing that I got this. This is something for you. Go forward with this. Hang that hat up, because that's not where I got you going. That right there took some trust and some surrender, right? Because again, I don't know how I lived taking care of me and 3 other people in 2017. Now, of course, other people were making money, but we were struggling in that point, in that period. But I watched God expand it. And even by the end of 2017, I still didn't have nothing but a little logo. That's all I had. I still didn't have a website, a logo and a domain name. I didn't do nothing else with it but what God told me to, right? So I think that's important, understanding how the blueprint works as well, because, or even how the whole blueprint framework, this unique offering, unique offerings of products and services. I wasn't doing anything because I was moving into a territory that was kind of, quote unquote, people thought new age, and God was trying to show me, no, this is me. This healing arena belongs to me, and this is where we're going. And that was so different, because that ain't how I have been doing it.
That's very key, because he gave you a message first. And out of that message, it allowed you to dive deeper, get greater wisdom. Like when he says something to you that you've never heard said before, but that's part of a message that you're carrying. Now you get to go and be like, okay, well, help me see this. Help me see this, Lord. So you go into the scriptures and he reveals and he shows you other aspects, right? That's stuff that if he gave you a blueprint, if you had a blueprint and he said, okay, I want you to do this, you wouldn't know what to do with it. And your stuff would probably look like new age. Right? Because that's the only thing that you've seen before. That's the only reference point you have.
Right.
But like when it comes to God giving you a blueprint himself, it's like he's not giving you the whole blueprint at once. He's giving you different pieces of the puzzle, like you said, helping you to create a framework, put this here, put that there, move this wall here, set this here. Those type of things. I don't want you to have a flat roof. I want you to have a pyramid roof, Right. And so, but that's what God does, and only he can do it. But too often we're trying to do what we've seen done before, or what we think would be nice to do. But what God wants to do in the process is he wants to take you, and it's almost like you have an ideal, and he wants you to proof that ideal. He already knows if the ideal is going to work or not. But what he's trying to do is help you gain understanding. So, like, for example, I have Crazy Good Massage as my business, right? And I had a thought about, when I worked for other people, I'm like, man, I don't like the way that they have their membership set up. I worked for like Massage Envy, and they had a membership, and I saw things about the membership program that I really didn't like. And I would, I'd be like, oh, I hate this. And so I was like, well, I would ask him for wisdom. Well, how can I do this? And I would sit there and ponder, how can I do this apart from this? Well, when I left the job, the first thing I did was I was like, you know what? I think I'm just I like discounted massage. That's part of the reason I worked at Massage Envy. I'm just going to offer them a discounted rate for massage. I'm not gonna give any restrictions. I'm not gonna make them be a member. I'm just gonna offer, you know what? I think I'll start at $30 massage. I'm gonna offer $30 massage. Ain't nobody show up for no $30 massage. Even my clients that I had, when I said, oh, for a month, I'm gonna offer $30 massage, even they wouldn't take me up on it.
Right.
And when I asked them why they didn't take me up on it, it's like, I feel like I'm using you. If I come for you already have reasonable rates.
That's good. Yes.
And when I talked to someone else about it, actually another one of my clients said, you know what? I can imagine if I didn't know you were good, I'd be like, who is this man that want to do a $30 massage?
Right.
Is he one of those creepers? You just trying to touch me?
Yeah.
Right? So there was no proof of concept. So during that process is when God started to point out, see, there's a reason why companies have this membership structure before they do a discount. Oh, I see it. Okay, so a membership structure that's tried and true, but I don't like their model. What should I do? Right. And so then I began to look outside of the industry that I was in. And eventually I came up with something that looked sort of like the Costco model, right? Where you pay for your membership annually for the year. And that wound up being a good thing. But before I dove head first into it, I was like, let me give it a proof of concept. Let's see if it'll work. I ran a Groupon. I had people come in at a discounted rate for Groupon for a rate that was similar to the rate that I would offer ultimately. And I was like, okay, I have this thing that I'm doing, this membership, what do you think about this? And I gave them the price point. And over that time that I did the whole Groupon thing for about the period of a year, all of a sudden I realized that I had a pretty high close rate. So then I had the opportunity to prove it was a proof of concept. I gained wisdom. I gained understanding of how things work over time. That's what God wants to do with us. He wants to give us unique offerings, something different, something that you have to work with and come up with your own proof of concept, right? So that you can learn why this didn't work. Because the other aspect of this thing, once you gain understanding, now you can bring other people along to help them when they're building something.
Yes.
Right. So that's why he has to give you this intimate knowledge where it passes knowledge to wisdom and where it passes wisdom to get to understanding, because you can't bring someone else up if they don't have understanding.
Yeah. I think that's important too. That's an important part of this whole process too, is to understand that what he gives you to do and to carry forth is not just for you. It's also for you to bring others along as well in that same arena, even though they may do it a little bit different than you. You have these proven, and that's something we need to capture too, is that there are proven strategies and solutions from heaven that you can go, okay, well, this works, so let's see how it works for you. Let me show you something, right? And we have to be open to that as well. But that is about alignment. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of get messed up as well, too, is they're not aligning themselves properly. Like, let's say, for example, maybe there is a coach or somebody and you love their formula, you love their process, and that's good, that's great, that's wonderful. And you're trying these steps and you're looking at this solution that they have and it's not working for you. Well, if that particular coach, if you go and like dig a little deeper, that's why y'all got to learn how to research people and find out who you're dealing with. And that coach is saying that they are a female conscious coach. You need to be careful with that. Watch out. What does she mean by female consciousness? What does that mean? Because there's this new age thing moving now with this feminine stuff, right? And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying you have to make sure that you are like, wait a minute, that doesn't even align with the kingdom. That's why this is not flowing or working well, because I'm in the wrong vein here with this. Somebody else may have a quote unquote similar solution that God has given them, but it doesn't have any of that toxic stuff in there, because all that new age stuff is toxic, period. It doesn't have any of that in there. What it has in there is his purity. And that is what we need to be looking for. And I think it would really behoove everyone on here to kind of go and check and see who you following and who you might be saying, that blueprint or that solution, that step-by-step process seems good to me, but is it in alignment with the kingdom? And that is so key in moving forward with your unique offerings and understanding how God is using you and moving you.
And another reason why blueprints don't necessarily work even when it's a godly blueprint is because God's going to have you give an account for what the assignment is he gave you. And if you're using someone's blueprint, that will yield certain results, but it's not the results you're supposed to receive. He's going to block that because he doesn't want you running off to go the wrong direction. He's like, I put you on the earth to do this. It's like this. Okay, if he put you on the earth and he called you a prophet and you're running around doing the things that apostles do, you're doing stuff that's beneficial for the kingdom, but it's not going to be beneficial for you because there's no reward for you in that, because you're not doing what your assignment was. If my daughter comes in, I give her, my middle daughter, she has the responsibility of doing dishes. And one morning she wakes up in the morning, and this is a real life example. Sometimes she does this. She decides, oh, I'm going to help daddy with getting the baby ready, or I'm going to, make the baby's lunch or whatever. And she never did her dishes. She's not getting rewarded for making the baby's lunch. And she avoided doing the role that she was supposed to do. It's the same thing in the kingdom of God. If the king has told you this is your assignment, or he has an assignment for you, and you don't go get the assignment and you don't do the assignment, you're not going to get credit for someone else's assignment that you're doing.
Right.
That's not how it works.
That's good. That's good. This conversation has been so yummy. Like really quiet
good over there. Did we say some stuff? Did we
shock y'all or something? Y'all know I'm known for stepping on toes. So if I stepped on your toe, you let me know. And I'll go. I love that Ebony said earlier when I was talking about the uniqueness. She said that's about bringing about the new age and color your soul. That's bringing his kingdom to earth. That's alignment with the original and not the counterfeit. That's good. I love that. Somebody said just taking it all in and taking notes, just listening and processing. That's good. Processing is really good. Yeah, these are good. Anybody have any questions or comments, even more than what we talked about? I'm just kind of scrolling right. Good. Glad you guys are enjoying this, because we're going to be doing more of these, like a lot more, I think, every month, right, Phil?
Actually, we're trying to do something every week, but they might not always look the same.
Yes.
They might not always look the same. Some of the times that we come together, we're probably going to do something that's more of a webinar format and stuff like that. You might see some other members of Team KDE pop in here with something specifically that God is speaking to them about. Because really, this is all about reaching and touching. When I took over the role, God kind of told me that KDE looks like the Old Testament temple, or tent of meetings, or whatever, where you have an outer court, an inner court, and the holies of holies, right? And so right now, this is all about being able to touch the outer court, and even bringing some people from the inner court, allowing them to come out to the outer court. Because what we're doing is we're just inviting people into community.
Yeah.
We're inviting them into more of what KDE does, because that's the heart of the movement, right?
Good. Somebody said you have to excuse my snapping. Just gonna be honest. I got a mama that don't understand when I'm live.
Like the people need to see my face too.
She is something different. Let's see. Is it Mitchell said this has been phenomenal on a million levels. Tons of notes on my end. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Latara. Hashtag thanks, Phil. Hashtag thanks, Latara. Look, y'all hashtag those thanks. Could keep doing that. When you see me and Phil like on Facebook talking, hashtag thanks, Latara. Hashtag thanks. Somebody said, come with it, don't quit. Good. This is good. This is good. I really enjoyed this conversation, because I think we need these places to be able to just have these conversations, because for a lot of us, the way that God has us moving, it appears crazy. It's like, this is not normal. It's not supposed to be normal. It really isn't. So to be able to come into a space like this and continue to build community around, what I used to always call, there's always a method to what seems to be God's madness, right? to be able to come together and have these conversations around topics like this and all the other topics that we'll be having on a weekly basis, I think is phenomenal, because it goes deeper than being a Christian, and it digs into the whole process of being kingdom and what that looks like and how we're moving as entrepreneurs. Because being a Christian entrepreneur, Shay always says, is different than being a kingdom-driven entrepreneur, or being a kingdom-focused entrepreneur. I think that that this is just a space, we're in a time, and and when we leave these conversations, that take this conversation with you to somebody else, right? Like, this is what we talked about, and have those conversations and begin building those like hubs of people who are like doing this thing with you. And I think that's really important. Jeree said, I truly enjoyed this time with you both. I've gained so much. Can't wait to review. Thank you. So this is a season for this field. I think it's really necessary that we are here and doing this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's good. I know we got about 15 minutes or so left. What I think I want to do is ask some specific questions about kind of some of the points that I brought up in the beginning. So our King is not only looking to offload a culture to earth, but products and services as well. What do you think about that? What comes to mind when you hear that?
Say that again. Say it again.
I'll say it one more time. Our King is not only looking to offload a culture to earth, but products and services as well.
That's when I think about that, what I think about is the fact that kingdom is whole. And so the answers we need for everything is there in the kingdom, even in business, and bringing solutions through products and services to people. I think it is really necessary, as we understand, not only is it whole, but it's holistic, and that encompasses everything that we are, and that those products and services are not just like business to business, but like offering products and services for people, building better relationships for people. Like you and Shay do a lot of things talking to couples, right? That's important. God cares about family. And I think that's important as well, and understanding that your product and service may look way different than somebody else's, but it still is a kingdom concept. And so that's my thought around that, is that it's whole. The kingdom is whole, and so God is going to present or bring forth things that resemble the kingdom. It's whole.
Yeah, that's good. Someone in the comments said, oh, that's Ebony, says it's confirmation. That's good. But just think about it. Like, imagine, because I've had experiences like this, where you receive a product or someone's service, and that product or service just spoke love to you, right? It was love. Like, I'm so glad someone did this for this particular type of person or this community of people. I remember seeing something that someone on the autism spectrum saying, or their child was on the autism spectrum, in reference to a product that was designed to speak to the autism community. They was like, oh my goodness, it's like someone made something that shared love with me, right? Because it was something that I needed. It's like someone knew what I needed, and it was produced for me. But that's what the kingdom wants to do. There are solutions to problems that the king wants to offload to the earth. And we have to go to him to get those solutions, because if we don't, we're not sharing love with the world in the way that he wants to. And if we don't do it, he will use people that are not, quote unquote, part of his kingdom to do it. Because he needs it brought to the earth.
And
your kingdom come.
And I think that needs to really be caught, because that is actually, if you pay attention, that's some of what's happening right now in on the earth, is that there are people out there going forth with stuff that we need to be going forth with. But God is like, listen, nobody here. This is what we're going to do. This is who I'm going to use right here. And so we do have to be very, very, very cautious in moving forward in this season with that, and understand that we all have something to carry. We all do.
Yeah, we have something to carry. We got to do it. Let's see. Is there one other one that I want to Kingdom exports? Yeah. Let's see. Kingdom exports will influence the culture of the nations we live in. Like, I'm going to use an example here to illustrate this. Like, I watch a lot of Japanese anime, and I might have mentioned this in one of the rapid fires I did. I watch Japanese anime, and I see a host of things from their culture that makes its way into these anime programs, and it's influencing the children that watch it or the adults that watch it. Right? There's a whole lot of secular humanism that shows up in Japanese anime. And I can see it because I know what the kingdom says, right?
Right.
And I still enjoy the Japanese anime, but I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can see why kids are starting to think like this, or I can see why there are adults that are beginning to think like this, because whatever is in a person, whatever is part of their culture, it will spill over and out of them, right? But that's what's supposed to happen with kingdom culture as well. Our products and services are supposed to carry so much of the atmosphere of the kingdom of heaven that when it overflows out of us, it affects the cultures that we're a part of as well. You know? Yeah.
You see that question from Shayla?
What is the scriptural example of a heavenly export? I can't think of one off the top of my head. But when I say heavenly export, I mean God's kingdom coming to earth. You know, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth, right? As it is in heaven. That is anything that comes from heaven to make an impact on the earth is a heavenly export. And so if there is an ideal that was birthed out of heaven and it comes to the earth, that is a heavenly export, right? So the scripture reference is this one here. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's Matthew 6 and 10.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, that's really good. Shayla said, thank you. She thumbs up. She got it. She got it. She got it. This is so good. Any comments or questions? We still have 10 minutes, Phil. We still have 10 minutes.
And we're gonna pause. We want you to think about it. You know, if you want to go through and look at the things, because I posted it in the chat when someone said, oh, they need to be able to see it because they couldn't write fast enough. So look at one of those things and you know, give an example of what you think about it, right? I'll just take the time as you're doing that. I'll take the time to talk a little bit about this. We contribute to the GDP of the nations we live in. And so when I got the word GDP, I had to go look it up. Okay, so what is the gross domestic product, right? And it's really, when you think about it, it's everything that a nation produces within its boundaries that may not be from that host nation. So, for example, a GDP of the U.S. may be Honda cars that are built here in the U.S. Honda is based out of Japan, but they do have plants here in the U.S. Where they're producing. And so it contributes to what's going on in the U.S. Well, the same thing with the kingdom of heaven. Even though the kingdom of heaven doesn't have a physical location on this earth right now, whatever we produce that comes out of the atmosphere of heaven is our nation producing something in the nation that we are in. And it affects the nation that we're in as well.
That's good. That's good. I think that's good. That's good. I shared it again so they could read through. Again, Unica said all of this is confirmation. You know, I think about people like Unica too, because her service is so different. She is offering people a religious detox, and that's what God gave her, right? He gave her this whole thing around religious detox. And like, why is that so important? Because so many people are trapped in the confines of religion that they miss relationship. And so hers is really, really unique in moving people from religion to relationship. That's a unique offering and her struggle with it. She's had a struggle with, what does that even look like? And I'm just like, you just have to keep asking God, because she works along with me. And I just love how she has opened herself up, even if it looks crazy in the moment, and what she's sharing and how she's going live and talking about the importance of this radical and reckless love. That's the name of her book. And I think I got it right here. That's funny. The book is right here. Yeah, Radical and Reckless. When God's love disrupts your life. And God took that book that she wrote out of obedience and just developed this whole process for walking people through a unique way of seeing and meeting him. So I'm glad that she said this was confirmation. Oh,
okay. Let's see. I see someone said, can you talk a little bit more about godly assignment and doing business? Godly assignment and doing business. I would say a godly assignment is anything that God is talking to you about, right? And a lot of times it shows up like through the vehicle of identity first, right? So I have an assignment to Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur to be the CEO. But what it looks like for me to be a CEO is out of the identity of father, right? And so although I'm a CEO and CEOs usually look a certain type of way, God has called me to be a father first to this movement, the Father of Movement. And that reflects how my godly assignment looks in this community. Now, there's still some things that a CEO has to do, right? Makes decisions, that type of stuff. But one of the things he recently spoke to me about, he told me that I want your role as CEO to start to look a little bit more like CFO. So is that a job description creep? No, because God told me my role as CEO in this season needs to look a little bit more like CFO. Why is that? We don't have a CFO. That's part of the reason. And what I need to do is to help bring finances in a different way and all the rest of this. I need to think about that stuff and have a culture that's ready, or a position that's ready for when a CFO comes into place. I don't know what that's all I know is God told me, hey, I want your role to start to look a little bit more like CFO. But that goes a lot into what he had me talking about when I was talking about an organism versus an organization. Like as Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, we're called to be an organism, not an organization. Although we have an organization, it's not supposed to be so separated that there's not a little crossover, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
Latara might be doing some things that make her look a little bit more like a CEO. I don't have a problem with that. She could be doing some things that make her look more like a COO. I don't have a problem with that. We're working together, getting the best out of everybody, because there's a little bit of crossover when it comes to the organism versus the organization. So I hope that answered the question, because I kind of went all over the place. That's how my brain works sometimes.
Yeah. If it was Noreen who asked, she said, thank you very much. I'm not sure who asked that question. She said, yes, thank you. Good. Something I was gonna approach, but my whole brain froze up. Anything else, Phil? I know what I was going to share. There's a way for you guys now, before, because we're going to wrap up, somebody said to like copy and paste into Igniters, but if I'm not mistaken, the little three, I don't know if you guys are like in the chat area where you begin the chat, if you see that little like paper, icon paper, if you click that, it will allow you to save the chat. Or it's not there. Are there three dots there? Because I think if you click, maybe because we're in webinar.
We're in webinar mode. That's probably
we're in webinar mode. Okay, so we're gonna have to shift that up. So had to shift that up. Okay, so we'll Phil, if you have it, then they just want to copy and paste it over into okay, no worries. We'll take care of that for you guys.
I still have it in my notes and on my iPad, so it's not a problem for me to be able to copy and paste what I shared. So that's cool.
Good. So this was good, you guys. You got anything else, Phil, before we wrap up?
No, that's it. That is it. And we'll somehow get this on Facebook, on the page with the video. That's why it's in webinar format, because we didn't know if everybody wanted to have their faces, on Facebook. So
Yeah. So this is, yeah, it is. That's why it's in webinar format. So we're looking forward again to bringing more of these e-talks. I really like that. I just, I want to get me a shirt. I like my shirts, my statement shirts. I want to say e-talks. KDE e-talks.
The advisor Shay Bonds asked me, she's like, you have a name for this thing? What do you call it? I don't have a name. And then when I started to produce an email for Angie to send out, it came to me, expansion talks, because we're talking about expanding the kingdom of God.
That.
So e-talks, we got it.
E-talks. Phil, April said, I'm not quite sure, is Igniters open for everyone to join? Well, yeah, but is it open right now?
We can, you know what, April, if you send a message, info@kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com, it'll go to Angie and she will give you a way that you can join. We don't have open registration right now, but I'm sure she'll be willing to do a one-off, invitation into it. We're going to be doing a launch. Well, not a launch, but we'll be doing open registration, but I think it's a good month and a half out. So you might not want to wait till then. So, but yeah, just send a message to Angie, because that will go to Angie, info@kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com. And she'll be able to get you some information.
Awesome. Good stuff. So, you guys, I think that's it for this e-talk. This was really good. We appreciate you all for coming. Listen, tell people about this. Tell them. Don't tell them what they missed. I don't like that. Just tell them why they need to be here. Right? Don't say, oh, you missed it if you didn't come. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just tell people they need to be here, right? At these conversations, because these are really good. So we're gonna say see y'all later. Right. That's not holistic, Shayla. You're right. You guys, thank you guys so much. Love you all. Bye-bye.